Another one of our producers. And Freddie Shanahan and Caitlin Green, two of our editors. We also have David Teague here. He was our supervising editor. David. And then Alex Pritz and David Boland, two of our cinematographers. That's it.
So, of course, like any really good documentary, it all begins with the access. Just talk about, how long did it take you to trust yourself to everybody in the film, and I mean, how long were you out there before you got out the cameras?
There's really not a simple answer to that, because I wouldn't say it's like I went there and then all of a sudden, like 6 months later, we had access. It was a constant process. But I will say, we spent about 3.5 years making this. I think I was in the field for about a total of a year. When you add up each chunk, I would go for usually 4 to 5 months at a time. And there'd be really long chunks of time where there was no cameras. One thing I found with access with these guys was putting the relationship with them first before the film went a really, really long way. And making sure that they understood my motivations for wanting to make it, and also me having a clear sense of their motivations for wanting to be a part of it. And oftentimes that happened off camera, and that went a really long way, always like kind of checking in and making sure we're all on the same page about that.
Questions? Yes. The question was explaining what their motivations were to begin the film.
That's a good question. So for X, I remember the very first time I met X. I sat down with him and I told him, I really want to do this project where we try to understand why hunters do what they do. I don't feel like I've ever seen anything on that, and usually the pieces of media that I've seen on this issue show, poachers as kind of these bad guys and these rangers as really good guys, but I've never seen anyone actually try to understand why the poachers are doing what they do. And his response was, it's true, I kill elephants, but the rangers are killing people. And no one really talks about that. And then he went into this long story about his father and how his father was killed when he was a young child while poaching, as you see in the film. And so I think he had this kind of chip on his shoulder about that, and no one talking about it, and his father's death kind of being swept under the rug, and no justice being served from that. So I think at the beginning that was really his motivation. For Asan, he's out there as a ranger working extremely hard and not getting paid pretty regularly. And so for him, I think he wanted people to see that the conditions are not good, that they're not being compensated, and the resources are very, very limited.
Yes.
Could you speak a little more to your motivations in making the film?
Yeah. Like I said before, I think it started with, I haven't seen this done, and I'm really curious to try to understand why these guys are doing what they're doing. And then I met X and Lucas, and it changed very quickly, and I kind of fell in love with them. They were not at all what I expected. They were really charming, really funny, and they didn't have shame around what they were doing. And that really drew me in. And it was a long process, and my goal was really to try to put myself in their shoes as much as I could, to the point where, once we're out on hunts, I can understand why they're doing it. And that took a really long time. But eventually I got there. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But motivations are a tricky thing, and it's not like that was the motivation for this 3-year process, and it changes. It's constantly changing. Half the time it's like these guys are challenging me and asking me questions, and I can't stop thinking about them, and I want to try to spend more time with them. I think the core of it is that we formed this amazing relationship, and it left me wrestling with a lot of ideas and content.
you end up in a place of compassion for, I mean, on both sides they were providing for their families, right? Did you come to a place of getting that?
Did you come to a place of compassion?
For
Yes.
the poachers? Yeah.
Yes,
The
I
poachers.
did. I did. I didn't see them as poachers for after a while, and I stopped seeing Hassan as a ranger. I just saw them as guys who are all in the same situation, who grew up in the same town, that have found themselves in this really tricky situation where they're being told by outsiders, your job is to protect these animals. When, as you see in the film, Hassan used to hunt. He used to be a poacher. And then he's given this uniform and this gun and this training, and he's told, now do the opposite of what you used to do. But he's still friends with all these people that do it. And neither side is, coming out well. Neither side is coming out with enough money for what they need to be doing to provide for their family.
Can we speak a little bit to the physical demands of the project? I think that's one thing that really stood out is how much of the action that you were a part of and all the emotional and physical toll it took on people around you, but certainly as the filmmaker, being there on the field for over a year, I mean, can we just talk about that process?
Yeah. So one thing we knew early on is that we didn't want anything to happen in the film that you just heard about but didn't actually see. We wanted this to be the kind of film where you kind of got to see life play out and you felt like you were with them. And so part of achieving that was, spending long chunks of time with them, but also filming everything from these life-changing moments to the really mundane things. And that was both because you never know what's going to happen in real life, but also because we wanted them to forget about the camera as much as possible. So by filming things that we knew were not relevant, that we knew we didn't want to put in the film, that we knew had nothing to do with anything, it almost trained them to forget about what we were looking for, and make us just, as much as we could, a regular part of life, which is a really weird thing to think about, like some tall guy with a camera like in your life daily. But it somehow became normal.
The technical aspect of it was so well done. Was it just you most of the time with the camera, running your own audio and doing everything?
No, I had Alex and David with me. I'd say that in terms of what's in the film, I'd say about 70% of it is one camera, and then the rest is two cameras, where you're seeing two sides of a conversation or double angles on a situation.
Do you speak Swahili, or were you just kind of filming it?
Yeah.
The question was,
And then two, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
And the second question is, was X worried about, I mean, do you really understand Spanish conditions?
Mhm.
Do you get some of that when this film comes out, or what?
Those are good questions. So the first question was, do you speak Swahili? The answer is no, I'm not fluent in Swahili. What I would do is, and I'd say for about half the film, this is kind of how things were going, I'd have a fixer with me, and we had lav mics on all the characters, and so he could hear through his headphones what they were saying in their lav, and then I put a lav on my fixer. And so then he would translate to English what was being said to me, and I had headphones and I could understand it in real time as I was filming. So half of the film was like that. The other half, I had no idea what was being said. And it actually ended up being some of the better shots and some of the better scenes. We found pretty early on that once they realized I was understanding what was being said, they preferred when I didn't. And so they would speak in their local dialects. They'd speak in Borana or Samburu or Somali, these smaller languages that my fixer didn't know. And I found myself actually shooting better as well when I didn't understand, because there's no point where you can say, oh, we're done, we got it. That's the point of that scene, it's finished. You don't know, so you just keep going. And then you end up with, great stuff you find out about months later in the edit room. The second part of your question is, do the characters have fear about the repercussions of the effects of this movie? And that's a really good question. It's something, we've all been wrestling with since the very first day of going out there. We're filming people doing illegal things. And I don't think I can actually say that I really felt peace about it until about 2 weeks ago when I went back and showed the film to them. I showed it to X and Hassan, and we sat down and we watched the whole thing, and it was the last 3 years of everything have gone into this. This is what it is. And then I kind of laid out with them, these are kind of all the bad things that could happen because of this. And then I said, these are all the things we're not doing to try to protect you. What do you think? How do you feel about this? What are your thoughts on the film and what we should do? And they were extremely supportive. I think it's different for each of them. X loves it. He wants everyone to see it. I really wish he was here right now because he's a lot and he's really great. He's a lot of greatness. As you can see, he's a king. With Hassan, it was a much different conversation, a lot more complicated. He knew I was there filming all these things that kind of paint him negatively, but I don't think it was until he saw it all play out that he realized what happens. But it was great because I was able to explain to him, we've changed your names, we've hidden the location, we've hired lawyers in Kenya and in the States who are advising them and us on everything we can do to protect them. And by the end of it, he was in support of what we've done, and he really thinks it's important that people see this. Because for them, it's not shocking. When they watched this, they weren't surprised. They weren't like, whoa, this is crazy. For them, it's totally normal. And I think them realizing that for a lot of people here and in other countries, it will be shocking and it will be illuminating was really powerful for them.
Yeah, this is our last question. Yes?
What do you wish you'd done differently?
What do I wish I'd done differently? That's a good question. Gosh, I don't know. I wish we'd done it as like a narrative, fictional. It would have taken 1/10 the time. I could have made like 8 movies. Yeah.
But you kind of ended up, I just want to interject with a question, or build upon that. You actually, with the editing, I think you actually turned it into a really good narrative. And just briefly, talk about how you worked with that in the editing room.
Well, over 3 years, we came back with 700 hours of footage. And what you saw was about 1 hour and 15 minutes. So you can do the math as to like how we compressed time and how we took a lot of content and made it into something really concise. I think, for us, it was really about replicating what we found in the field to be our experience in that edit room. So the final experience kind of showed that. And we really wanted to let go of a sense of place and let go of a sense of time and really make it be about the decisions that these guys were making and the choices they were faced with, and really letting those things dictate the narrative.
We'll take one more. Yeah.
So, 3 questions here.
Wow.
Just
Any
keep it quick.
part of this that is fake? And secondly, the archetypes you have, the birds, taking play the cockroach, the vermin. How did you come up with that? To capture, at the end, it's about quality, active quality. And is there a way that animals and humans makes some sort of prosperity happen? And the last question, personally, is
Wait. That didn't sound like a question to me.
is there a way that animals and people can exist, coexist,
Yeah.
to make their lives better on this side?
This is my father.
Of course he has the question.
The first question, is there anything fake? No, there's nothing fake in this movie. We didn't tell anyone to do anything. We didn't, do any recreations. We wanted this to be as authentic and raw as possible. So everything in it is real. Can animals and humans coexist? Yes, I think they can, and they were for a long time. That's what's kind of crazy about this, and it's a little bit of a shame, but I'm also glad we didn't do it, is that in this country and throughout lots of places in Africa, animals and humans coexisted for a really long time. And if you do your research and really dig into what's happened over time, it's really been the influence of outsiders coming in, and also this creation of the ivory market that has led us to where we are now. In terms of what is the answer to get back to that place, I don't know. That wasn't really our goal with this film. What we really wanted to do with this film was to show people what life is like on the front lines and to change the way people talk and think about this issue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all.